Okay, I'm on. Well, welcome to the whatever episode of the Jowls of Justice. I am Droopy McGobbler, here to jowl for you today. And let me just say that... Box. Wait. Butter. Sod. Okay, that was ridiculous. But hey, a lot better than the time when I lost half an hour because of technical difficulties. Do you have any idea how hard it is for me to talk for less than half an hour? Yeah, for those who are only listening, not watching the video feed, I am fooling with the camera, trying to stay away from foul language, and get it on myself. Those who are watching the video stream can obviously see this. Okay. There we go. Sorry about the dead air, dudes and dudettes. At any rate, let me just remind you that Droopy McGobbler is a semi-fictional character. In fact, the fellow in real life who plays Droopy McGobbler is also a semi-fictional character. So I will be saying some things that are absolutely true, some things that are somewhat true, some that are based on a true story to about the same degree as a Hollywood movie, and things that are completely fake, fabricated from whole cloth. So I would advise not to do anything that you hear here. Number one, right, most of my funny stories involve something that is dangerous or stupid. And number two, this is a River West. Okay, if you hear something on the radio, if you try to do any of the things that I did, then, you know, you're not a hipster. You got to come up with your own things. Otherwise, it's just some garbage you heard on the radio. And that makes you a poser. So, at any rate, last week I had started to talk about, you know, defense weapons, that sort of thing. Which is a loaded issue, pun intended. So I won't spend too much time on that part of it. And by the way, my colleagues, Saggy McPherson and Waddles McFury, are not able to make it today. But if you download last week's podcast, then yeah, you can at least hear them, if not see them. At any rate, so... I remember I had said that a blackjack was an awesome hipster weapon because it's retro, right? And nobody uses it. You know, so but obviously you can't defend your house with something like that. So I remember I had just started on the merits of beryllium copper bullets rather than solid copper or bronze. But at any rate, if you know what those are, then you can have them made or make them yourself already. So you don't need to hear about them from me. However, right, when it comes to home defense, people have seen movies. They know the snick of chambering an automatic pistol or the sound of thumbing back the hammer on a revolver. Right? And the ultimate sound that makes you stop in your tracks or run away is the of a shotgun. And you know, most obviously, if you do not have to shoot, then it's better than if you do. So actually, a scary sound can be pretty helpful. Under the Castle Doctrine, you are allowed to watch a burglar with an infrared thermal scope, right, and hit him with a laser sight and all that. But you know, it'd be nice to scare him off. You know, I droop against violence. I actually do. You know, I I gobble in disapproval of all that kind of stuff. But at any rate, I wanted something cooler. Now, many of you who are gun nuts and or crazy people like me, now this is an example. I just described myself as crazy. Droopy McGobbler is crazy. The actor, that is to say me, has been, don't forget, certified to be sane by your very own Milwaukee County Health Department, mental health department, pretty recently. At any rate, though, crazy people and gun nuts will know this, that of course, you know, what you really want is the venerable M250 Browning machine gun. You know, and that is cool. Don't get me wrong. You know, that's one of the ultimate weapons, but you know what? That's not extreme enough for me. No. My significant other and I, well, my girlfriend and I, no need to hide straight sexuality, got an apartment together, and we were discussing, you know, this unfortunately important issue, and we settled on, you know, we decided on something, on what we're gonna, you know, have for those God forbid cases. And, you know, here's a retro weapon for you that is also awesome. The formidable Ehrlichon L85 20mm autocannon. Now, even if you don't know what it is, right, anything with the word autocannon has to be awesome. It's already awesome. And the name Ehrlichon is just a bad butt name. You know, you could name anything that, and it'll be like, whoa. You know, oh, your 2-year-old daughter has some really nice pink sneakers on. Where'd you get them? Oh, I got them at Stryrite. They're Ehrlichons. You immediately, somebody who heard that would know that those pink sneakers would be kicking somebody's butt later that day. So anyway, it's a World War II weapon, and I figure then, you know, there's no fooling around with a shotgun. You know, honey, I heard something downstairs. Creep down the stairs with a golf club, right? No, absolutely not. Honey, I heard something downstairs. Sweetie, to the autocannon turret. Man the Ehrlichons. Main forward batteries open fire. You see, that would scare the heck out of me. I wouldn't even have to hear a shot. Anything, you know, because again, right, man the autocannon turret. That sounds like something, you know, I don't want to actually be around unless it's me running the thing. And anything about batteries opening fire, that you know, that would also make me run. But oh heck, yeah, I admit it. I'm actually using notes, right? But at any rate, aside from the loaded topic of, you know, guns and all those sorts of things, right? I was thinking about legendary and mystical weapons the other day, right? Things like Excalibur, the Spear of Destiny, the Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch, the Kusanagi no Tsurugi of the Japanese Imperial Regalia. And I gotta say, right, if I was able to have any of those, wouldn't be Excalibur, nothing. The legendary historical weapon I want is President Andrew Jackson's Cane of Righteousness. If you read the story, right, but I mean, it's not a story, it's actual. You know, it did happen this way. A fellow attempted to assassinate Jackson with 2 pistols, and both misfired. Then Jackson went ahead to beat the guy with his cane, right, as already, you know, the president and an older fellow, beat the guy with his cane until his own security police or whatever, before they had the Secret Service, actually had to get the president off of the assassin. You know, kind of thinking, okay, well, we actually can't let this guy kill someone right here. But yeah, so Andrew Jackson's cane, if I could find that, man, forget Excalibur. That thing has the power to make guns jam. It has the, you know, it clearly has the power to reflect attacks back on its owner, on reflect attacks on its owner back at the attacker, right? And it can turn anyone into a super strong fighting machine, right? Although the cane may not have jammed the pistols, it might just be that Andrew Jackson scared them into not firing, because he is my favorite president. You know, he was rowdy. He was always dueling, carried a few bullets in him his whole life, and dug one out with a knife in a cabinet meeting because he was bored with what his what his secretaries of cabinet were saying. There we go. So, at any rate, he was pretty awesome. You know, he threw, when he got inaugurated, he threw a party at the White House. He threw a party that was open to everyone, all the citizens, no invitation. You know, drunks, bums, people looking for a night on the town, you know, your regular Johns and Janes, all showed up at this thing, like a couple thousand of them. And he had an 1,800-pound wheel of cheese, and among other things, they broke all the windows in the White House, smashed the furniture, you know, made a mess on the lawn, all of that. But, you know, you want to show you're one of the people as an official, I guess that's a pretty good way to do it. Throw a party and invite them all. But anyway, you can look up most of the awesomeness of Jackson. I only have an hour here. My second favorite, of course, is Richard Nixon. All right, and someday I'll do some imitations of him. But these are my jowls that are flapping. You know, so look up Nixon and Jackson yourself, and see which one you like better. The, you know, aggressive in your face, or the sneaky and whatever the heck I was going to say. Huh. Well, at any rate, I had mentioned, well, I'm going to jump topics. I can't actually segue this one as far as I can figure out. The giant cannoli effect. Now, what this is, all right, my grandmother always used to get us great, you know, always used to make me a great birthday cake. She was diabetic, right? So she couldn't eat a lot of the stuff she wanted to eat, so she made lots of it for us and had us eat it. You know. And that was good because she made some good food. I mean, it was all bad for diabetes patients, so, you know, fat and sugar, salt, all those things that taste really good. But she always made, you know, a really nice cake. And one time she bought it. But that was okay, because she did not buy this cake at the bakery. No, she got Caruso's cannolis in Utica, New York. Right, that's where she lived. That's where my dad's side of the family lives. She got, you know, old Mama Caruso to make a giant cannoli. I mean, this thing was enormous. The only time you would have ever seen a cannoli like this is if it was one of the ones that's stuffed with little cannoli. You know? No. This was a giant fried thing of, you know, our cheese and sugar. So at any rate, I was, you know, years and years later, I was remembering it, and we were talking about her or something, and I said, oh, remember when she had made that giant cannoli? It was this big. And I spread my hands about probably a good 3 feet. All right, I remembered it being about 3 feet long, you know, 8 or 10 inches in diameter, right? The cannoli of all cannolis, right? The cannoli effect is editing memories and remembering things a little bit more embellished or dramatic or awesome than they actually were. My parents laughed really hard, right, and explained that no, the cannoli was about a foot long, right, a little longer, and maybe 4 or 5 inches fat. Okay, but that is an enormous cannoli. Nobody makes them like that, right? That's the biggest one that Caruso has a mold to make. But, I mean, it already was the cannoli of all cannolis. And, but I don't know if it's because I was smaller then, or because, or just because of the awesomeness of it, right? How as good of an experience as it was, I, you know, of course, remember it being even better. It felt good, right? But I still remember this thing, even after being told otherwise. You know, I still remember it being enormous, much more enormous than it actually was. I mean, yeah. At any rate, if you want some cannoli, right, go to Utica, New York, and go to Caruso's, because the other place to get them in Utica, Florentine, sucks. It's almost like a Mets-Yankees thing, you know, or Cubs-White Sox, or Jets-Giants. You know, there are two places, and you either like Florentine or Caruso's. My family is staunchly on the side of Caruso's. And so, yeah, if you want good cannoli, go there, because my dad goes to Italy a lot, and apparently it's not quite as good as Caruso's there. So anyway, you know, the giant cannoli effect can be applied to anything. I mean, obviously people are going to remember things, right, differently than, you know, differently than they actually happened, right? And that sort of thing is not the giant cannoli effect. The giant cannoli effect is when it actually is remembered in a ridiculous way, such as a 3-foot-long cannoli. You know, that's a ridiculous thing, whereas a foot-long cannoli is just fine. You know, it makes me remember a time when I asked a guy who had told me this story from when he was a kid. I asked him, didn't you tell me something about a guy building a synchrotron in his basement? And he was like, come on, no way. You can't build one of those in the basement. That's ridiculous. No, yeah, that one we stole from an army base out of a radar. I mean, that's awesome. You know, but you shouldn't steal. Now, another instance of the giant cannoli effect. You know what? I'm not using these notes anymore. This sucks. At any rate, so another manifestation of the giant cannoli effect is that, you know, I used to play to do a good number of sports, never any team sports, because I don't like people. But, you know, I did wrestling, right? I was a wrestler, and I was a boxer. I did several pretty cool martial arts for a good long time, number of years, and you know, the thing is that boxing I wasn't good enough, right, to really win tournaments and stuff. You know, the martial arts organization in the school that I attended, one of the rules of the style, one of the traditions and strictures of that style is no tournaments, no exhibitions. You know, that is not what it's for. It's not a sport. It's not a game. So at any rate, that leaves wrestling, and the way I remember it. Now, I was pretty big and strong. I mean, people don't like when I refer to myself as like fat or out of shape now, but I'm comparing to, you know, obviously being in, you know, nearly professional athlete shape. So, you know, at any rate, though, that was true. You know, I could actually do a fair amount of physical activity, lift giant weights, all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to wrestling, the way I remember it is that I walked onto the mat right? And, you know, if for those who can't see me, okay, just watch Dragon Ball Z, one of the episodes where Goku goes Super Saiyan, because I remember that when I would walk onto the mat, right, I'd go like this, you know, and then little chunks of the floor, stones, or whatever would start flying up behind me, and everything would get blurry behind me, and I'd glow with yellow fire and purple lightning. And my hair would turn blonde, and my eyes would turn green, right? And then in super mode, then I'd go have my match, you know. Now, obviously, that's not true. It wouldn't have been allowed, right? Making lightning indoors? Absolutely not. Wrecking up the floor? You know, no way. But, you know, after I told that to enough people in a silly way, I started to actually get a good concept of what that would look like. But everybody knows it didn't actually happen that way. You know, obviously, you know, I just walked on like a normal person and then focused my chi to unleash the nine-tailed demon fox inside me, creating a aura of red energy that destroys things, and so on and so forth, and the glowing of the red would turn into tails, and so on and so forth. Right? I got that from Naruto, which is another good Japanese show, but at any rate, though, yeah, I'll just edit the memories based on what cartoon I'm watching, you know? I mean, nobody could say that I didn't. I mean, some people, I guess, could say that I never actually exploded into an energy aura, but I don't care. I want to remember it that way, you know? Now, because Japanese cartoons would be awesome if they happened in real life. You know, way better than American cartoons, because Japanese cartoons aren't just for kids. You know, I know a guy who recently got back from Japan, and, you know, I've always wanted to go to Japan, you know, and experience it for myself. I never have, but, you know, and I don't want to be one of those people who's all about Japan, but, like, doesn't actually learn any Japanese properly or know how it really is, you know, or whatever. The word for that is weeaboo, right, which replaced Wapanese. Right? You can see where that's going with that. Yeah, I asked this guy when he got back, you know, some important cultural questions. You know, I said I'd like to, you know, there's a few things I'm wondering about. For instance, Tokyo is very overcrowded, right? And traffic is a huge mess all the time. But, you know, if they don't want that problem, how come they all drive in these one-seat, 85-foot tall giant robots with missiles and cannons and stuff, you know, instead of just driving the little cars that they send over here? And he said, well, he doesn't know. It's just, you know, something that's ingrained into society. So even though they make the little cars for us, they all ride their robots around, giant mechas. That stinks because I want one. You know, unfortunately, I don't know how to build one. But, you know, I also asked him, because I was curious, you know, how often do you hear the phrase, you're not chasing an ordinary ostrich? He has taught himself to speak and to learn ninjutsu, and he is now a ninja ostrich. You know, I asked how often, and he said, oh, all the time. You know, all the time, anytime, you know, most ostriches over there are ninja ostriches, and that makes sense. But yeah, I really do want to go there. I haven't been to enough places. You know, I was at Cambridge University in England for a little bit, and that was pretty awesome. I mean, that's a good place to visit, even if you're not attending it. Probably be more fun that way because you don't have, you know, school. But speaking of school, I just started school. I'm now at MSOE, the Milwaukee School of Engineering, majoring in You know, I am now a freshman again, majoring in software engineering. And, you know, this seems like a pretty good thing for me to do. I was a little, excuse me, nervous because of my last experience with college. You know, I got my diploma, I got my degrees, but, you know, there was a lot of cost, non-financial cost to it. You know, it was a bit of a hard time. But at any rate, so I, you know, I was thinking of school, you know, and I was looking for the bookstore, and I kept finding that main address, the 1025 North Broadway address. This was driving me nuts. Right? Every reference to this school online had this address, right? Everybody knows it's just the main administration building, and every other classroom, you know, or department, or whatever has an address, right? Well, I spent 45 minutes looking for it, including asking people. And you know what? I never found it because I was looking for the wrong thing. I was looking for an outside entrance or a building, right, or something. But I finally figured it out. I finally called them, found their number and called them, and they are in that building. That address is a real building that contains a lot of stuff, a lot of departments and such, you know, for that school. And that actually tripped me out. That actually seemed really weird because, you know, I didn't go and tour a lot of schools when I was a senior in high school. You know, I didn't tour any. I visited the one I was going to after I had already applied, been accepted, and committed to go there. Right? Not the recommended best practice on how to do that, but hey, whatever. I got in and moved and got my degree. But, you know, I was just thinking, and I was thinking, man, you know, this address actually has stuff. Right? Columbia, you can't, their address is 2960 North Broadway. That's the address of the university itself. But you can't mail things there. There's nothing. Right there, what's there at that address is a giant gate, a 35-foot high iron gate that, you know, with two flame, because a lion is the mascot, with two lion statues on either side of it, holding up flaming swords that are actually on fire because of an oil or gas thing through the statue, right? And there's the guards in funny hats on either side of the gate, and there's a giant bell that you must, to get in to the campus, you must strike this bell with a mallet 4 times. Then when the guard comes from, I can't believe I'm telling you guys this, but hey, it's a cool place to check out. Apply and go there if you can get in. And I think that most people who listen to a radio station like this are clever enough to get in. But anyway, so you knock on it 4 times on the bell, right, never ringing the gate, and the guard comes, right, another one in an even funnier hat on the inside, and you have to demand, you know, open, you know, I demand, what did I say? Oh yeah, you have to say, open and admit, blast, I can't remember it. Oh yeah, it was open in the name of the king. And he would say, we have no allegiance to the king here, because Columbia University used to be King's College, changed it after a Revolutionary War. And then you say to the guard, you respond, a mere test of your loyalty, sir, and you speak well and true. That's not actually how it goes. You know, that is an example of the application of the giant cannoli effect. But, right, what is actually there is a gate. You know, it's not 35 feet high, but it's probably 20 or 25, and there are gold crowns on top of, because that's a symbol of the college, there are gold crowns on the bars of this gate at the top, right? There is a guard in a guard booth. He doesn't actually wear a funny hat, and he, you know, instead of standing there ramrod straight watching, he more tended to, you know, lean back and, you know, be lazy in his guard booth. Basically, as long as you didn't urinate on the guard booth or the gate itself and weren't, you know, starting a fire then they're not about to bug you, you know. But at any rate, that gate is there, and it is big, right? Like I said, I never went there before I was admitted to visit, but, you know, I imagine that would be pretty intimidating. It is a big gate. It has a guard booth. There are gold crowns on the top, and there are statues flanking it. Not lions with flaming swords, but I was looking up, I forgot what they were. When you enter that campus, you pass through under the eyes of the incarnations of science and letters. The woman is the avatar of letters, right? That is to say, things like the liberal arts, social sciences, the humanities, and the man is the the personification of science, right? So you go through these doors being, it's like, you must pass and be approved by letters and science, and you've passed their tests if you walk out of that gate the last time with a diploma. But yeah, so I imagine that would be actually pretty intimidating, especially if you know what that place represents and all that stuff. I mean, if I say, right, yeah, just go to the, you want to check it out, cool, and you get to a gate, and are being watched by, it's like judged worthy. That's what I meant to say. You're being judged. Are you worthy of entering? And you don't know if you're truly worthy until you graduate. But at any rate, I never thought any of that. I applied on the last possible day. Luckily I'm pretty clever, because I went to a prep school, right, that was pretty good. And there are people who spend, a lot of time, right? There was a very good guidance counselor department, and I never saw or met with the guy once. People spend a lot of time touring colleges and stuff, trying to get an edge. They learn all these, they spend thousands of dollars on SAT classes, I don't know, all those sorts of things. I never did any of that. How I got into college? Well, everybody from that school, right, goes to college. So, I clearly was, and I would have anyway. That was always my plan, was to go to college right after high school. And so I realized on a particular day, I forget, I don't know, the winter maybe, whenever you apply to colleges. I'm old, I don't remember this kind of stuff anymore. But, so I kind of was more of the type that on that day I realized, okay, if I don't apply to a college today, I'm not going to be going to school in the fall, right? So I figured this. I figured, well, if I've never looked at any colleges or investigated any, then, anything I've heard of as a good school must be good. So I started looking at the Ivies, and Columbia and Brown had, online applications. So you can get it, so I could get it in that day, as did Johns Hopkins. Johns Hopkins was essentially like a just-in-case school, right? But that's fine. They had an application on the, I was able to get it in that day. Brown, I never really wanted to go to, but you can't apply to just one school. That's kind of arrogant, unless you're going early decision or early action. Because, but hey, you know what? Everybody who that has any relevance to just graduated, got done with their school year. So, about that stuff. But I did it on the last possible day, and I chose my school because they had an online application, and my wrestling coaches were both, one of them was my chemistry teacher and the other one was my history teacher. So there's my recommendations, from the departments of letters and science. So I sent in my application. just before the end of school, I printed out the forms and ran to my coaches and said, Murph, Hank, can you fill out these recommendations? Otherwise, I'm not going to go to college. All right. So they did. And then I heard later that I got into all three, luckily, chose Columbia because it's in New York, and Brown. I didn't like many of the people who went to Brown from my high school, and they're in Providence, New York versus Providence, Yale, New Haven, right? New Haven stinks, right? I mean, it literally smells too. It's terrible, right? And Providence, Rhode Island, that's just garbage. Dartmouth's way up in New Hampshire in the boondocks, right? I don't know why. Well, I guess because Dartmouth's really good, but Cornell is barely an Ivy. UPenn, UPenn, I don't know. But at any rate, who cares, right? Harvard people are snotty, and Columbia's better, So at any rate, yeah, I got in, and I wasn't even going to do it. My dad told me, he said, Tommy, it'd be probably a good idea. Poop. He says to me, Droopy, you know what would be, a good idea for you to do is to go to New York and actually look at this school that you're about to attend, right? So I did. Go to it, and go and take a walk around, all that kind of stuff. It looked pretty good to me. I'd never seen any other colleges, and it's actually a pretty nice looking school. And so I was prompted to go and see the place that I had already committed to go. But yeah, luckily I liked what I saw, and it was nice. So yeah, I never felt that, oh my God, I'm being judged by the incarnations of knowledge. No. But for those who, whatever, I'm not giving college advice. To heck with that. My radio show's better than that. So at any rate, I went to MSOE, and what you go into there is not, a giant gate with flaming swords and funny hats. All right. It's an elevator lobby. You walk in through the main entrance. You're in an elevator lobby, a small one with 3 elevators and a directory. You go there to walk around, right, or whatever. That, the sense that gives to me, right, is, if you don't have a destination in mind already in that building, there's no reason for you to be there. Obviously, it's not, that's not the university's position to be that harsh, but, it certainly has that look to it. Every building is, has science or technology or engineering in its title, right? There's no other buildings for, the other stuff. There's not anything that isn't a science, engineering, and technology building, which makes sense because it's an engineering school. I just saw some guys jowl at me. That's good to know I have fans. But yeah, the way I'd describe it is that school has jowls, not the sort of academic jowls from ivory tower professors and especially deans. To be a tenured professor, you have to show significant, at most universities, you have to show significant jowl development over the first few years as an associate professor. Right, that's one of the things that is generally done to determine whether an instructor will get tenure, and it's done, and they measure, right? They inspect and measure the jowls again when someone is about to, is nominated to be the dean, right, of anything. Deans have to have jowls, and not those kind of academic jowls. This school has serious jowls of, seriousness. If the school were personified, It would be a guy who's serious and has a mustache and smokes a pipe and wears a tie all the time, even on Saturdays, and does all the things that the manuals for everything say, right, exactly when they say they should be done, because he knows that this manual was written by the same sort of people, guys with serious guys with mustaches who smoke pipes, and so it's, it has authority, right? And it's more of those kind of jowls. I mean, you can tell by the buildings, right? They look like office buildings, instead of that, stately, academic look. But I mean, so yeah, all the students there, I could just feel a sense of jolliness. The youngest, prettiest, most cheerful of the young women there, you could still tell that when they got their engineering degrees, right, they would begin to droop, right? And, the men, again, even the youngest and the most in shape, right? You can see that where the jowls will develop, even in the absence of physical signs such as jowl buds. I saw a few guys who I think are ambitious types, and they will go on to study. They will go on to try to earn wattles, right? Wattles in the front of their necks while keeping the jowls, which can be pretty intimidating, but requires a lot of work to get to that level. I see a lot of people, again, even the thin and young and pretty women, right, who you'd never think would ever grow a gobbler, right? You can see that eventually they'll have a big turkey gobbler just storing all that, just to store all that knowledge, right, and precision. I feel bad for the ones who will always be thin, because a turkey gobbler is one thing on a fat guy, right, but on a skinny person, it's going to look like they have goiters. Some of these other people, I can tell, are going to, the guys, even because nerds only come in skinny and fat, right, not medium. So the wattles, the ones who will probably move on to their wattles, are generally the skinnier sort, right, and the fat sort will most likely have, you can tell that some of them are developing a bullfrog. You can tell that they're developing a bullfrog, not just a gobbler roll here, but where the chin is hardly prominent at all. I know I explained this at the end last week, but I didn't have too much time, so I'm going in a little more depth. The chin only protrudes a little, and there's no defined line between the cheek and the neck. So instead of a roll, right, it's just a big mass that looks like you could inflate it like a bullfrog and go, brrr. Just like Richard Nixon is the canonical example of jowls, the canonical example, I would say, of a bullfrog is Chief Judge Belvin Perry Jr., the judge in the Casey Anthony trial, who always yelled at everybody. There's that picture where he's sentencing a guy to like 7 days, right, for contempt of court for giving the finger to a prosecutor. It was just a spectator. But yeah, if you look at some pictures of him, right, then you'll think that he has, from certain angles, it would look like he has a huge gobbler, or a double layered, right, gobbler, or a giant double chin on top of it. No, that's just the way he's holding his head. He has a bullfrog. A judge like that should have a bullfrog, and he frequently looks like he's gonna inflate it, right? I think that's an awesome name, although I think naming your kid Chief Judge, for his first and second names, right, might be a little much to live up to. You gotta figure you get teased being named Chief Judge Belvin H. Perry Jr. But that's an awesome name, however, the Belvin part, because who the heck is named Belvin? And most people named Belvin probably won't be, I've never heard the name anywhere else, anybody famous. Not even Belvin Perry Sr. But doesn't it just sound like a judgely name? You know, a Melvin can be anything, you know, anybody, but a Belvin, that you can tell that guy's gonna maybe be a senator, right, or something like that. In fact, some people even said that he should be overthinking that he should and probably would have a television show, court show, because he's gotten like the name for it, and he looks like, you know, a judge, not so much like Judge Joe Brown, you know, sort of even. I mean, he was a chief judge, right? He's got a bullfrog. I mean, to store so much authority, right, and wisdom that you need a bullfrog and can't do it, that you grow a bullfrog because a regular gobbler, right, won't hold it, you know, then yeah, that's pretty darn good. I always used to say, you know, when he was always in the news, my slogan was this: Belvin, for when Melvin just won't cut it. I don't know, I think it's funny. Because, like, you know, sometimes I get obsessed with words, right? Like brandishing, or, you know, whatever, in the word of the month or whatever was Belvin. And so people then were used to me saying stuff about Belvin all the time. So it was mainly funny because of me. But at any rate, if a Melvin won't do, find a Belvin. That's what I'd say. Now, that makes me think of the letter B. And I'm not turning this into Sesame Street either. But, although I did watch that when I was a kid, of course. You know, my parents had us watching public television a lot. But, you know, as you pretty much would expect, right, of all the characters to like, right, or want to be like, or learn stuff from, or whatever, mine was Oscar the Grouch, right? The one, you know, to the extent that you can have it on Sesame Street, villain in the entire show, you know? But that's about what I'd expect, you know, out of myself. So, you know, with the letter B, that makes me think of computer hacking. And here's why. Because people are always worried about about people stealing their information, hacking into this, that, and the other, right? You know what? That's real. But hacking, even in corporate settings, right? Hacking is the number 4 way to steal information. The 4th most successful, 4th most common, right? Because the first 3 are the good old 3 Bs: burglary, bribery, and blackmail, you know. So that's pretty awesome, because that was something I was obsessed with once too. The word burglar, burglary, burglarize, and especially the British burgle. I always say something got burgled and never burglarized. But I'm against burglary. You know, I believe, like most people should be. I did a lot of bad things, but I was certainly never a thief. And bribery, okay, burglary I won't do. Bribery I've already done enough times, right? But I've never blackmailed anybody. I really want to. But now we're getting into talking about illegal activity, I realize. So I'd spend as much time telling you not to do things and that I don't advocate it as I would actually talking about the things. So I guess we should drop that one too. But, you know, physical security is, you know, it is very important. I rented a storage unit a little while ago to hold a lot of stuff when I was moving. And, you know, I thought it was a good place, right? And I of course got this, you know, super lock, right? I basically said, I want to go buy a $50 padlock if they had one. And they didn't, but they had a $25 padlock, right? That was really good, and I bought it. And I later realized that that was the most secure thing in that entire building, right? The gate, with all its button codes, right, and automatic this to, you know, control access, right, was held together by what looked like not quite as big of a motorcycle chain. That's how it retracted, right? That's how it. And that's not. I mean, I didn't expect them to have a crash barrier. Okay, I have traffic bollards up, but you know, that's that's for the perimeter fence. That might be not quite good enough. Right? Then there were the doors to the buildings, and they were big, heavy security doors. And everybody, had to, I was issued a key, right, to get into the door. And I later found out after, being there for a little bit, I found out that at least one of the doors didn't work, right? And it's possible to not lock them. I would figure that they would always be locked, except to somebody with the key, and that most people who are storing stuff there would think to lock the building back up on their way out, if it does, since it did unlock, right? The doors are corrugated garage doors. The bolt that the lock goes on is more of a flat piece of metal. And, oh man, there's my alarm. Looks like I'm almost done. But at any rate, I think that here would be a good business model. They say storage units, laundromats, and car washes are the three best, businesses, because you don't have to do too much, and, even though there's plenty of storage and all that stuff, it would be awesome to build a bunker. I mean, a real, like a cement blockhouse, right? Rebar concrete, ugly as heck, and people would pay. People would pay, to store their stuff in the bunker. But, I don't know when I'll have the money for that. And by the time I have enough money to build a bunker and turn it into a storage unit business, then I'll probably use that money for something else. However, it looks like I'm almost done. And so I'll just leave you with this. I just forgot the last thing I was going to say. But, yeah, I want a bunker. I just want one anyway. But, this is it. So let me just say, tune in next week. Thanks for listening, except for those who aren't listening, in which case, screw you. But remind me, I never gave the number. You should always call 414-935-2951. Right? Always. If I've told a story before and you want to tell me to move on with it, right? Yeah, you want to ask questions, you want to say whatever you want, as long as you cannot curse. So yeah, until next week, remember that I'm the one who put the Tom and tomfoolery and convinced George Lucas to put Jabba the Hutt back in the original movie, New Hope, the first one, and also I convinced him to make Greedo shoot first instead of Han, right? That was a kind of long one that's not as funny as I put the Tom and tomfoolery and the alligators in the sewers, and I staged the moon landing, and I did it on Mars. Have a good one.